very good evening and welcome to the news tonight, your one stop for the day's top stories from India and across the world. I'm Tracy Shilshi and here are the headlines. State BJP holds a meeting in Jammu and Kashmir a day after the PDP says the party will have to reassess its alliance, insists on written assurances on some issues. Kapu community's unrest for OBC reservation takes an unexpected turn. Activist allegedly commits suicide, hits out at politicians for making false promises. Supreme Court recalls the notice sent to Arunachal Pradesh governor, accepts the centre's petition that the governor will not be answerable to any court in exercise of powers and duties of office. And the Boko Haram unleashes a trail of destruction. At least 86 people killed as terrorists firebomb huts and burn several children to death in village housing refugees. Our top story this evening, Jammu and Kashmir Governor N.N. Vohra has reportedly asked alliance partners BJP and the PDP to clarify their stand on government formation by Tuesday. This was on a day of meetings by both the BDP and the BJP to discuss PDP chief Mehbooba Mufti's hardened stance regarding her erstwhile alliance partner.
The Jammu and Kashmir unit of the BJP held a meeting on Monday, a day after People's Democratic Party indicated a rethink in its position on the ruling alliance in the state. PDP President Mehbooba Mufti on Sunday hardened her stand on some issues that has insisted on written assurances from the BJP.
कल माननीय गवर्नर साहब ने अध्यक्ष होने के नाते मुझे फॉर्मेशन ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट के लिए बुलाया है और उसके विषय पे बात करने के लिए बुलाया है उसी विषय को लेकर आज हमारी बैठक थी.
According to media reports, Mehbooba wants withdrawal of the controversial Armed Forces Special Powers Act from some parts of the state, resumption of dialogue with Kashmir's separatists among other issues on which the BJP is not comfortable.
मात्र 10 महीने का समय हुआ है 6 वर्ष के लिए एजेंडा ऑफ अलायंस बना है. डेफिनेटली वी विल ट्राई टू कवर ईच एंड एवरीथिंग और हमारी कोशिश ये रहेगी. ये मिनिमम कॉमन मिनिमम प्रोग्राम होता है. इसको छोड़कर भी कुछ चीजें ऐसी होती हैं जो बढ़ाई जा सकती हैं.
The PDP and the BJP formed a government last year after months of haggling in the state which produced a fractured verdict. The PDP has 27 seats in the assembly, followed by the BJP's 25 in the 87-member state legislature in December 2015 elections. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
On to the other big story today. The quota protests in Andhra Pradesh took a serious turn when a member of the agitating Kapu community committed suicide. Members of the community have been seeking reservation in the backward classes list. Carrying out protests in this regard, they clashed with the police in Tuni town of East Godavari district on Sunday, injuring 15 policemen. They later set a passenger train on fire and torched a police station, leading to a law and order situation in the district.
After a day of violent clashes, an uneasy calm has returned to Tuni town in East Godavari district of Andhra Pradesh. Train and road traffic resumed as members of the Kapu community agreed to end the blockade temporarily. Elaborate security arrangements were made and additional reinforcements sent to the East Godavari district to avoid a repeat of Sunday's incident when quota protests by the Kapu community turned violent. Agitators went on a rampage, setting on fire a passenger train, a police station, police and private vehicles. Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu took stock of the situation a day later, assuring a commitment to provide reservation to the community.
Government will take suitable action in order to provide for reservations in excess of 50%. I am having so much of acquaintance with these people for the last 40 years. Not now. ఎప్పుడు వాళ్ళ మనసులో ఒక పాజిటివ్నెస్ ఉండే తప్ప ఏదైనా ఉంటే వాళ్ళు మాట్లాడే భాష కూడా పౌరుషంగా ఉండదు. అలాంటి వాళ్ళు పోలీసులు కొడతారండి? ఎందుకు కొడతారండి పోలీసుల్ని?
But leaders of the opposition parties pinned the blame on Chandrababu Naidu, saying if he had fulfilled his pre-poll promise, this would not have happened.
The recent, this 2014 election, there is a lot of promise by the Chandrababu Naidu, saying that definitely I will give for reservation. Yours is the oldest issue. I'll consider. But unfortunately, 18 months is over after he came in power. But he never cared about the issue of the reservation.
Chandrababu Naidu promised earlier before election, that is before election, he promised like anything. He want to give the reservation to the Kapu section. Now it is 2.5 years after that, they revolted like this, and then now it is a failure of the, it is a clear-cut picture, it is a failure of the government as well as the Chandrababu Naidu.
Senior Kapu leader M. Padmanabhan has also threatened to sit on an indefinite fast if the state government does not include the Kapus in the backward classes list by Monday night. The Kapus had aligned with the TDP ahead of the 2014 general elections after Chandrababu Naidu promised to restore their status as backward classes, which had existed till 1960. But after the elections, the TDP government dragged its feet on taking a decision to appoint a judicial commission to make the recommendations. The TDP says it is yet to consider the options on how to give quota to Kapus without upsetting the existing quota to backward classes and to ensure that it withstood legal scrutiny. The TDP government is also wary of similar demands by other communities. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
In other news, the Supreme Court today said that reports in which Arunachal Pradesh Governor J.P. Rajkhawar recommended President's rule don't have to be shared by him. It also cancelled its earlier request for a copy of the documents. The notice was recalled after Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi pointed out to the constitutional position of the governor. Though the court initially stressed that it could issue a notice which the governor could choose not to respond to, it finally accepted the centre's argument that the governor does enjoy constitutional immunity. The Supreme Court also issued a notice on former Arunachal Pradesh Chief Minister Nabam Tuki's fresh petition protesting President's rule in the state.
I have never been anybody's agent. I was not agent. I am not an agent. I do things of my own conscience, of my own rationale, and of my own reading of the Constitution and interpretation of the clauses and provisions of the Constitution.
And staying with the Supreme Court, the Apex Court has come down heavily on certain states for not implementing the welfare legislation, the National Food Security Act. The court asked why a state like Gujarat was not implementing the law passed by Parliament. The court asked the centre that since the act says it extends to whole of India, why was Gujarat not implementing it? It went a step further and said that in future, some states could say that it was not going to implement the CRPC, the IPC and the Evidence Act. The Apex Court bench also asked the centre to collect and collate information from drought-hit states on the status of welfare schemes like Manrega, the National Food Security and the Midday Meal. The centre has been asked to file an affidavit by the 10th of February and posted the matter for further hearing 2 days thereafter. The Apex Court had earlier asked the centre to give information about implementation of these schemes as to whether those affected were being provided minimum required employment and food or not. Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi today met party leaders from West Bengal in a bid to finalize the party's electoral strategy for the state. However, no decision was taken on the issue of alliance with either the TMC or the Left Front.
A large delegation of Congress leaders were in the national capital on Monday to meet their party Vice President Rahul Gandhi. Led by PCC President Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, the state leaders apprised Rahul of the current political situation in the state and put across their views on the electoral strategy for the forthcoming assembly elections in the state.
I cannot say that alliance between Congress and CPM has been done or etc. Because today we have expressed our views and Rahul Gandhi ji has listened to us with rapt attention and he has assured us that in consultation with the CP, Madam Sonia Gandhi ji, he will be able to conclude this chapter of alliance, either yes or no. So till that time, we have to wait.
Sources indicated that a majority of the party's state leaders are in favor of an alliance with the Left Front led by CPIM. However, party leaders refrained from making any direct comments on the issue.
We have discussed very clearly to our leadership what is happening in the state, what type of atrocities are going on there, it is very difficult for the common people to stay fearlessly. So we shall have to do something to stop this type of inhuman activities which is going on in Bengal.
Congress is faced with a peculiar situation in the forthcoming assembly elections in West Bengal. While the state leadership is advocating an alliance with the left front, the party is engaged in a bitter political battle with the left-led LDF in Kerala, which is likely to go to polls along with West Bengal later this year. Vishal Dahiya, Rajya Sabha TV, Delhi.
The Reserve Bank of India will announce its 6th bi-monthly monetary policy review on Tuesday amid clamour for rate cut to give a boost to the economy. Experts, however, say that the Apex Bank may keep the rates unchanged and possibly watch out for the union budget for a clear roadmap on key macroeconomic parameters.
As inflation has inched upwards, RBI may keep interest rates unchanged in the upcoming monetary policy review on Tuesday. WPI as well as retail inflation have risen. In December, WPI-based inflation stood at minus 0.73%, while retail inflation was at 5.61%. Experts say while RBI may maintain status quo, it is likely to adopt an accommodative stance.
I don't feel very optimistic for any further reduction. But the problem is industrial production has gone down. Though it is a month-to-month figure, nevertheless, the call of the time is that it should go up. Any reduction, and more so, this situation having no hope to me for interest rate reduction.
Industrial production plunged to an over 4-year low, contracting 3.2% in November, raising expectations of corporate India for a rate cut. However, industry chambers voiced the need for banks to transmit the lower interest rate to borrowers to revive demand and kickstart the investment cycle.
The RBI has cut earlier the interest rates, but that has not been passed on to the consumers. And the banks say that unless the borrowing rates come down, how can they be passing on the benefits to the consumers? The borrowing rates are still very high.
The RBI wants annual inflation at 5% by March 2017, but inflation has been ticking up. The implementation of the 7th Pay Commission, which will raise wages of government employees by nearly 25%, and government's efforts to revise budget deficit targets to stimulate demand may drive inflation further beyond the RBI's target. Kriti Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And let's get you some more national news updates in Nationwide. The municipal workers' agitation in Delhi marked its 6th day, with school teachers also deciding to go on an indefinite strike. More than 130,000 employees are on strike since Wednesday, forcing operations to end in municipal schools and hospitals, besides leading to a breakdown of the state's sanitation machinery. The High Court will hear the issue on Tuesday. Classes resumed at the University of Hyderabad on Monday after 2 weeks of massive protests over the suicide of Dalit research scholar Rohit Vimla. The student bodies, however, continued its peaceful protest and relay hunger strike on the campus to press its demands, which includes the sacking of Vice Chancellor P. Appa Rao. Nepalese Army Chief General Rajendra Chhetri will be in India on a 6-day visit from tomorrow. This will be Chhetri's first visit abroad after assuming the top army post in September last year. The army chief's visit comes ahead of the proposed visit of Prime Minister KP Oli to India in February. With a quick break here, up next we're getting international news. Stay with us.
To mine or not to mine? Meghalaya is caught in a bitter legal battle. There can be an alternative for livelihood, but no alternative for environmental damage. What happens when these coal reserves finish?
It's a question of political will, which is pending with Government of India.
At stake is livelihood of millions of people.
किसी खाने को नहीं है, किसी छोटे छोटे बच्चे हैं यहाँ पे, हमारे बच्चे को एजुकेशन नहीं मिल रहा है।
यहाँ तक कि उन लोग आत्महत्या करने के लिए मजबूर हो गए हैं लोग।
Watch our special report, Curse of the Black Gold, only on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. Let's get you some more news now. And Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari, who is on a 5-day visit to Brunei and Thailand, today arrived at Brunei Darussalam. It's the first ever visit by an Indian Vice President to the country. Speaking on board the special plane, the Vice President said that both India and Brunei are exploring possibilities of increasing trade on oil and natural gas. Minister of State for Home Affairs Hariphai R. Chaudhry is also accompanying the Vice President on the two-nation tour. The Vice President said that the visit is an effort to strengthen relations between the two Asian countries. Calling Brunei an important ASEAN country, he said that India wants to deepen ties with it. On board the special plane, the Vice President also expressed hope that the upcoming budget session of Parliament will function smoothly.
Question is not of arming the chair with police powers. That is neither here nor there. The question is of developing an attitude in which all sections of the House consider it more productive to discuss, debate and decide rather than otherwise.
Afghan Chief Executive Officer and Head of the Council of Ministers Abdullah Abdullah called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the national capital on Monday. Both discussed key bilateral issues including security operations. The two countries also inked an agreement on visa-free travel for diplomats for both sides. Abdullah said that he is deeply appreciating the support being extended by India for infrastructure development and capacity building in Afghanistan. Modi also expressed gratitude towards the Afghan government and the national security forces for their bravery and sacrifice in order to protect Indians, especially during the attack on the Indian consulate in Mazar-e-Sharif in early Jan this year. Abdullah also met with External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj. He is also scheduled to attend a conference on counter-terrorism in Jaipur on the 2nd of February, which will be inaugurated by President Pranab Mukherjee and attended by Foreign Secretary S. Jaishankar and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, among others. The Afghan CEO is on a 5-day visit to India. Meanwhile, Syrian peace talks struggle to get off ground a day after the Islamic State suicide bombings claimed at least 71 lives in Damascus. The European Union said that the attack was aimed at disrupting the peace talks in Geneva. Talks between the Syrian government and the opposition are yet to begin, even though the UN envoy held consultations with both sides separately.
The Syria peace talks ran straight into trouble as IS suicide bombers executed coordinated attacks near a Shia Muslim shrine in Damascus on Sunday. According to a British-based observatory, the attack targeted a military bus carrying Shiite militiamen who were changing guard. Out of the 71 killed, 42 were fighters loyal to the Assad's regime. The head of the Syrian government delegation at Geneva said the blast confirmed the link between the opposition and terrorism, indirectly hinting at Saudi-led and funded Islamist opposition. The Syrian opposition meanwhile held positive discussions with the UN Special Envoy Staffan de Mistura on Sunday.
There are foreign powers endorsing foreign agendas aiming at making political pressure on the Syrian government by using terrorism as a political weapon.
We only came to Geneva after we had received assurances and a commitment. We have written commitments and we have a very precise commitment on the fact that there would be serious progress on the humanitarian issues.
US Secretary of State John Kerry urged both sides to seize the opportunity and end the bloodshed. EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini said the bombings were clearly aimed at derailing the UN-brokered peace talks.
The people of Syria deserve a real choice about the kind of future that they want, not a choice between brutal repression on one side and terrorists on the other. This week in Geneva, that political process can get underway. The road ahead remains challenging.
In the case of Syria, are there to remind everyone that where allegations reach the threshold of war crimes or crimes against humanity, that amnesties are not permissible.
A possible ceasefire, release of prisoners, aid deliveries to worst-hit areas and eliminating the threat from IS are some of the key points on the agenda at Geneva. The World Peace Body is aiming for 6 months of talks while working towards a political settlement to the Syrian crisis. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
At least 86 people have been killed in an attack by Boko Haram militants near Nigeria's northeastern city of Maiduguri. The extremists firebombed huts, and reports say that several children were burned to death. Scores of charred corpses and bodies with bullet wounds litter the streets from the attack on Dalori village and 2 nearby camps housing 25,000 refugees. It was a third attack this week, suspected to have been carried out by the insurgent group and the most deadly. Since it started losing control of territory, Boko Haram has reverted to hit-and-run attacks on villages as well as suicide bombings on places of worship or markets. The shooting, burning and explosions from 3 suicide bombers continued for nearly 4 hours in the unprotected area. The violence continued as 3 female suicide bombers blew among people who managed to flee to the neighboring Gamori village. Troops arrived at Dalori but were unable to overpower the attackers, who were better armed. Now, the World Health Organization will hold an emergency meet on the spread of the Zika virus in Geneva today. The meet comes after the UN body warned that the Delhi virus is spreading explosively and could affect as many as 4 million people in the Latin American region. The meet will decide whether to declare it a global emergency. The mosquito-borne virus has been linked to serious birth defects. The WHO officials describe Zika as moving from a mild threat to one of alarming proportions. The WHO's actions are under intense scrutiny this time after its handling of the outbreak of the Ebola virus in West Africa, which was widely criticized, and it was deemed to have been too slow to declare emergency. The Zika virus has spread to 22 countries in the Americas, prompting governments to take necessary steps. And according to US scientists, the vaccine for Zika might be ready in 2 years, but it could take almost a decade before it's publicly available. With that, let's take you through some more international news updates in Global Buzz. Cuban President Raul Castro today started his first ever state visit to Europe. French President François Hollande called Castro's trip to Paris a new stage in strengthening relations between the two countries, building on his own state visit to Cuba last May, which was the first by a Western head of state in half a century. The National League for Democracy dominated parliament opened in Myanmar to choose its first democratically elected government since 1962. The NLD won 80% of the elected seats in November's historic vote, but will have to share power with the army. The first sitting of parliament is another step in Myanmar's drawn-out transition, which will go on until the NLD government officially starts its term in April. US presidential hopefuls will make final pitches to people in Iowa, where the first votes for party nominations will take place later tonight. Polls suggest that Republican Donald Trump has a narrow lead over Ted Cruz, but both are well ahead of the others. But the Democratic race is slightly tighter, with Hillary Clinton emerging ahead of the Senator Bernie Sanders. British Prime Minister David Cameron and the European Council President Donald Tusk failed to reach a deal on Britain's European Union renegotiation. The two discussed the EU's proposal for an emergency break on benefit payments to migrants as a way to meet Cameron's target of curbing migration into Britain. Saudi authorities arrested 9 American citizens among 33 terror suspects over the past week. Washington, a strong ally of Riyadh, confirmed that it was aware of the report but declined to elaborate. It did not say if any of the terror suspects were linked to the IS, which has claimed several deadly attacks against security forces and Shiites in the kingdom since last year. Time for another break. We'll be back with the sports news. Stay with us.
Wake up to a complete roundup of news from India and abroad. Politics, strategy, business, sports, keen analysis to kickstart your day. Watch Breakfast News weekdays at 8 a.m. on Rajya Sabha Television.
Welcome back. Let's get you some sports news. And in tennis, both Novak Djokovic and Angelique Kerber created history at the 2016 Australian Open Championship this year. While Djokovic won a record equaling 6th Australian Open title, Kerber became the first German since 1999 to win a Grand Slam title. It was also a good first Grand Slam for Indian tennis ace Sania Mirza, as she won her third, consecutive Grand Slam title.
It was a familiar ending, a habitual champion winning once again. The second best player in the world could not topple him, and going at this rate, seemingly no one can, for at least some time. Novak Djokovic's record-equaling 6th Australian Open title was his third consecutive Grand Slam and the 11th of his career, putting him alongside two of the sport's idols, Rod Laver and Bjorn Borg. A beaming Novak Djokovic showed off his Australian Open trophy in Melbourne on Monday, saying the desire to become the greatest tennis player ever will be an encouraging factor in years to come.
After 2008, it was the first Grand Slam win, and now 6 titles later, and 8 years later, it's truly incredible to see all the all the years that went by, and how good I play in Australia each year. So this serves as a great confidence booster, great wind in the back for the rest of the season.
The Serbian, who secured his maiden Grand Slam at the Melbourne Park back in 2008, said every Grand Slam title has its own unique feeling.
Of course it does. Every title feels different, especially the Grand Slams that are the most prestigious, most valuable events in our sports. And the first title I won in 2008 here in Australia. I was here with my family, with my parents, my brothers.
Meanwhile, Angelique Kerber was given a warm reception on her return to Frankfurt on Monday after she became the first German since 1999 to clinch a Grand Slam.
Es ist schon ein Traum, ist jetzt wahr geworden. Ich habe das erreicht, wovor ich halt so lange dran gearbeitet habe, geträumt habe, und gegen eine Serena dann im Finale zu spielen, was nochmal was ganz Besonderes für mich war. Ja, es beschreibt einfach, Worte können es nicht beschreiben.
Indian tennis star Sania Mirza also said winning 3 Grand Slam titles in a row was a dream run. Sania arrived in Hyderabad on Sunday.
We haven't lost a match in a long time, but also to win 3 Grand Slams in a row, it's what really dreams are made of. So we're really excited, obviously, and it was the perfect way to start the year. We still haven't lost this year, so we feel really happy. And 3 slams in a row, who would have thought? I've had a great summer, and I'm looking forward to taking a couple of days off before going to Fed Cup.
Mirza also said she felt honoured and privileged to receive India's 3rd highest civilian award, the Padma Bhushan. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
And that's all we have for you on the news tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.